Welcome to Between Two Hops, a segment on the Taproom exclusive inspired by Inside the Actors Studio, where I get to know my guests a little better. I'm your host, Dean Zarbaugh. I'm joined today by Jack Kephart, brewer for the Brew Kettle, and Justin Kerlin, VP of Sales and Marketing for the Brew Kettle in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's get started. Jack, what is your favorite style of beer to brew and to drink?
So they can be different.
Yes, unless they are the same. Some people both enjoy brewing and drinking Doppelbocks. I've had that answer because it's a pretty easy beer to make. So,
I would say Marzen Oktoberfest is kind of like my holy grail of brewing.
Nice.
And I would say it's almost it's also what I like to drink too. I mean, I like hoppy beers. I like sour beers,
Yeah.
but if I'm sitting down to just really just enjoy a beer or two, sitting around talking with friends,
I can geek out about Marzens, man. That's one of my absolute favorite styles too. Going to the opposite end of the spectrum, what's your least favorite style to drink and to brew? Nothing that you necessarily have against the style, but it's just maybe it's a bit of more of a pain to make.
Wow. Probably to drink, it's probably holiday beers. I mean, it's not that I hate them, but it's just I want beer.
Yeah.
I want beer to be predominant. As far as making beers, almost any beer that's a challenge is something that most brewers probably want to brew.
Right.
So that's probably the most mundane beer. It's probably whatever beer you're brewing a lot of.
Right.
So unfortunately, sadly, that's White Raja. But it's not. There's nothing against it. It just becomes
absolutely.
It's just a quick beer.
You've done it so much.
Exactly.
Well, you love the shandy so much. You love brewing that.
Yeah, that's a quick beer to brew. It's a quick
turnaround time really
because
nice?
it's lower alcohol, so
so
it makes for a shorter brew day.
Yeah, that's true. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I've already been a graphic designer, so I'm done with that. I love carpentry. I mean, I think I'm okay at it. I mean, I couldn't make a living at it because I just take too long to do anything, and I'd starve to death, trying to make a chair or table that took me 6 months to.
But I did it.
Yeah, I made a chair.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
That's an even tougher
I mean, politician. You can't win.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I
don't know. God, that would have been. I almost think, wow, that would have been interesting to put as the one I would like to. Just to beat myself over the head with it.
That's right.
Probably anything that would require excessive, continued schooling. So I'll just throw lawyer out there.
Yeah.
Because who wants to be a lawyer?
Nobody.
No offense to any lawyers that might be out there listening.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Please don't sue me. No. What?
Good catch.
Which?
Not that there's
You used to be a
anything wrong
lawyer.
with it.
No. Which hurdles did you personally face getting into this business, and how did you overcome them?
Basically, just getting your foot in the door, and like I said, I had a lucky break. Having that happen.
Yeah.
So, I missed the first wave, back in the early 90s, and then about the time I caught on, it was, right after 9/11, where, breweries in town, probably 15-20% of the breweries in town closed, from that. Maybe not because of that, but,
but
just
the economic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I can't really say that I've had any brutal hurdles other than just at the peak of my growth phase there was kind of just a down, a low tide in the brewing industry.
Just ride the waves.
Yeah.
What has been the most interesting trend you saw in 2018 in the craft beer industry?
You could help with this one.
I mean, to me, it's the swing back away from hops and towards lagers and towards sessionable, drinkable yellow beer, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think obviously the hazy phase is there, and it's it is what it is, but there is a solid amount of new lagers entering into the market.
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting to me. I mean, we saw it coming, but it's this year it's really picking up steam.
Absolutely. On the opposite end of that, least interesting trend that you saw recently?
too many hazy beers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting to the point where it's like
Just saturation.
Yeah, it's just over the top. Don't get me wrong, I get it, but it's sometimes to me being able to brew a beer with that amount of flavor that's crystal clear. That's the real challenge in it, you know.
I'm gonna say this, Justin. He's not gonna like it, but throwing like gummy bears and Fruit Loops into mash, and
see what comes out. I agree, man. I'm with you.
I mean, and I guess as a pub brewer, you have the ability to do that because you're selling small amounts of it. But
at the end of the day, man, give me a beer. What is one piece of practical advice you'd give someone that is starting out in this industry?
Learn, just go someplace and at least volunteer and just for a little bit. There's a lot of poor guys that are opening places, and if you find the right niche, the nice small community, you might be able to make it. But they're opening these smaller breweries, and they're thinking about putting beer in package. So I would say learn a little bit first, and then B, serve a small community, and don't think about putting beer in package.
Yeah. And to me, I would just follow that up by saying don't be afraid to challenge the limits of what beer is and what beer can be. Right. Because I feel like the best new brewers are the ones that are out there challenging what the public says is okay with beer and not. And the beers that stick around, the beers that have staying powers, are the ones that didn't listen to that and have challenged what beer is and what beer can be.
Absolutely. If you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell the younger you?
Just 10 years ago?
Just 10 years ago.
If it was like 25.
Let's go 20.
I have to count back and see what would 25 be. 10 years ago. We'll just stick with 10. Probably try to, convince or just whisper in the ear of ownership here, just because we didn't know, just to get into cans earlier. I think that would have been a great thing. I mean, it's nothing that anybody did wrong. It's just, it would just been nice to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, what or who has been the biggest influence in your brewing career?
I'm going to say a really good friend of mine who passed away recently. He was like my homebrew mentor down in Akron by the name of Art Beal. He was a storied and medaled homebrewer, won in the amateur, homebrewing awards, circuit, I guess you could say. The American Homebrew Association has an annual nationwide competition, and the brewer that garners the most points for medaled beers wins an award called the Ninkasi Award, and I believe he won that in 1998. And that was about the time that I was at least joined the club that he was in, the Society of Akron Area Zymergists. And so he taught me a lot. I mean, he taught me basically, everything I knew to geek out and become a professional.
Jack, Justin, thank you so much for your time. Tune in next month for another edition of Between Two Hops, and you can catch up on past episodes by subscribing to the Taproom exclusive on YouTube.